Hello everybody, my name is Chris and welcome to my channel called Second City Sports. I recently started watching a channel by the name of the Ringside General and joined his community Discord. I've had a lot of fun talking with him and the rest of the guys in the chat, and it's kind of inspired me to make my own videos, so shout out to him and the rest of the guys. I'll put a link in the description if anyone is interested. Anyway, in this video I just wanted to talk about what I think is the most frustrating part of watching the Blackhawks so far this season, that being the constant line changes between every game, and why I think it's stuttering Connor Bedard's growth this season. Before I start, let me do a pro YouTuber move and ask you to like the video if you enjoy it, and if you really like it, subscribe. It would mean a tremendous amount to my ego. Anyway, let's begin. The Blackhawks have played 17 games so far to start this season. Connor Bedard has played in all 17 of those games, putting up 3 goals and 10 assists, shooting just 5.7% so far this season. These numbers are worse than his first 17 games last season, but I don't think it's on him. To start the season, Bedard has been paired with 7 different line mates. I'm not a mathematician, but that's just under 2 new line mates every game. Being a 19-year-old in the NHL is hard enough as it is, especially when you're on a bottom feeder type team like the Blackhawks, but doing it without a consistent lineup has to make things harder. I understand that the Blackhawks head coach, Luke Richardson, is in a tough spot. He has to balance player development with also trying to win a few games during the season, and from his perspective, juggling the lines every game to find something that works probably seems like a smart idea. But I think at this point, it's hurting the team more than it's helping. We are just 4 games away from being a quarter through the season, and I don't think the team knows what its best line combination even is yet. That's obviously pretty bad. I think the time for experimentation is done. It's time to look at the data that you've gathered from these first 17 games, pick 4 lines, and stick with them for a 5-game stretch, let's say, and then you can adjust as necessary. This would give players the time they need to build a bit of chemistry. For me, the lines I would use are this. The first line would be Donato, Bedard, and Teuvo Teravainen. Donato has been a very surprising player. We were joking in the Discord that we got to try and get him to an All-Star game. He just keeps scoring goals. He's got the hot hand, so why not put him on the first line with Bedard and just see if he can keep it going. It could be a decent trade chip. Teuvo, obviously, was a Blackhawk 10 years ago. Great player. I think he's a great leader too, and I think playing Bedard with him just makes sense. He's got a bit of a two-way game, and he can still contribute in the offensive end. Bedard obviously is going to be on the first line no matter what. So the second line, I would go with Hall, Reichel, and Bertuzzi. I think Taylor Hall has played pretty well this season. Even if the points haven't always been there, I think he's consistently putting in a good effort. Lucas Reichel has been really impressive this season. I think he's a really, really good forward, and I was really annoyed at the start of the season when they were just healthy scratching him. I think he can be a player for Chicago going forward, and I think it makes sense to play him in the second line with quality players instead of sticking him with Patrick Maroon and Craig Smith every night. Even though he's played well with them, I think giving him a bit more ice time, a bit more opportunity, and maybe a little bit more pressure would be good for him long term. And Tyler Bertuzzi, I think, is a great net front player, which helps. This is where it gets kind of interesting, and this is where you could kind of mix stuff around a little bit more. But for me, the third line would be this. I would go with Foligno, Kurashev, and Craig Smith. And then the fourth line would be Ilya, Dickinson, and Anderson. Now, these 2 lines you can kind of swap around, and depending on what you need for that night, like if you're going to be sitting back a lot more during the game, then obviously the Ilya, Dickinson, Anderson line would probably be better as the third line, and then the Foligno, Kurashev, Smith line could be the fourth line. But I think when you're a bad team, you should go into games trying to win instead of just trying to sit back and play for overtime. So for me, Foligno, Kurashev, Smith, there's a bit more offensive upside on that line. I know Dickinson will have like one really nice goal every month, and you're like, wow, fuck me. But I think Foligno, Kurashev, Smith would be a decent line, and Ilya Dickinson Anderson is a really good defensive line. Like Dickinson is arguably like Selke worthy as a center, which is just really awesome. Thank you, Vancouver, for giving him to us for basically nothing. Um, and then obviously, I would give these lines like 5 games, but then you can, if it's not working, then you can start making little adjustments. Like, let's say Donato stops scoring goals, right? Then you can move Kurashev from the third line up to the first line, or Foligno, or Reichel, or Hall, or Bertuzzi. It's basically just you give these lines like 5 games just to see as almost like a baseline, and then you make small little adjustments and see if things get a little bit better if you change some stuff up. Like maybe Bertuzzi moves to the first line left wing. Maybe Hall takes Teravainen's spot on the first line. Stuff like that. I think that's just like a common sense way to build a team. I didn't really go over the D pairs in this, but for me, the best D pair we have is Vlasic and Jones. I'm not the biggest Seth Jones fan. I know a lot of people. He's very much you love or hate him. I just think he'll make one play a game that makes you go, "Wow, he's really good," and then he'll make like 2 plays that cancel out that one awesome play. Um, that's just me, though. That's my opinion. Vlasic, I think, is a great defender. I think he's going to be long term Blackhawk. I would love to keep him forever. And I mean, we have some other good young defenders too. Like Kaiser's been impressive this year. Allen has had moments of looking like a competent defenseman. Really, the only defenseman I don't like is T.J. Brody and Connor Murphy. I'm not a big fan of Connor Murphy either, but that's just me. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video, and yeah, that's it. Bye.